Welcome to TradeTheMBI.com. This is John. This report is for the 31st, and well, we end the month. So where did we start the month? Well, it's right about here. 2164. We're at 2174. Not even worth commenting on. That really didn't move anywhere. So what do we have though? We're completely reset as far as shakeout goes. We're moving into oversold, and price hasn't moved any lower. Those are relatively decent signs from a bullish standpoint. Problem you have there though is the steel has already moved forward. Now across the steel above the cyan will be a little bit bullish, but you would expect to see a spider at that particular point that would then break it down. But if that holds up at all and stays above clean, then continuation to the upside. You can see the drape off here. It's just pointing out that, you know, what was overbought and what's really going to read overbought for a lot of people still on their oscillators, and that is not. So don't be fooled. There's plenty of bounce power capable, especially with the shorts well above zero in all these cases on the DOC. Indicates that there's plenty of available. USO, as long as it remains about where it is or a little weaker, would be bullish for the market. GLD, again, nothing going on for gold to make any pivot move whatsoever. And like I said before, I think bonds are a little too expensive for what you're getting. And the euro, at this particular point, dropping down almost to the 23% on this. So we've moved past our dip below the red, well, retrace of the positive extreme, which was right there, the 117 range. We were way overbought at that particular point. We had to wait for a little bit of the rollover on the shakeout. Now the new updated shakeout is going to come. I'll show you that one in a second. That's on my SOS, but it'll be converted file. Now what's going to happen when that any of the changed files, you may go ahead and upload them and they may not show up. You may have to remove them and put them back on your chart in order to update them. Otherwise they'll show blank. That's just a function of the fact that the language is going to be completely changed, and it'll need to reboot what was there because it won't be the same. So just giving you that heads up so that you're aware of it. I'll put it also in the indicator upload information when I send it out. You know, this is a good one. I thought I would show this. Now, typically for a short setup, we often look at the DOC spread where the cyan moves above red. Most often it's above green as well. Less important. But what's critical about this, maybe it's something we need to go over a little bit more often, that isn't a DOC spread right there. Even though you can see price coming down, you have to have the cyan over a 4 value. In this case, 630. That would become your trigger point. It can vary depending on chart, but not that much. Now, ideally, you also need to have your orange above the 7.5 at this particular call. Fine, dandy. Key then is for a turnaround point, or at least a point where you would then set a stop that's just a couple of points higher than the close, is when the orange moves below the red or green. And in this particular case, it's more powerful when it's both, and your red is below the negative 13.5. So in that particular case, at this spot right here. So the entry, 73.50, turnaround down to 64.75. But at this particular point, you could put a 2.5 point stop. So you could take it either from the high, which I think is a little bit too generous. At that point, you might as well just use the long algo, and that's what I would typically use at this particular point. Now, powerful turnaround point at this particular spot. Now, sure, nothing wrong with taking that at that particular point. Is that a turnaround spot? No, because at this particular point, you could have like this dip below the red line on the extreme, and you may need to revisit it. What you really need for that is this as a long signal right here. Very clean. Steel, plus 13.5. Red below negative 13.5, and then the orange dips below at that particular spot. When that happens, you've got green light to go. In this particular case, it actually happens at a close at the long algo. So this is exactly where you would cover from this case chart. Let's just go ahead and mark it here. You would go boom like this, and then instantly you would turn like that. In this particular case, your low stop would just be right down there around the 57 range, just below the low from a 66. So it's a decent stop, but that's what you have to have in these particular cases. Now, it doesn't take long for it to move up into the high side. And in this particular case, then you can see we get cyan below red. And in that particular case, that would be what you would mark as an official end to this trend DOC run right there. And then we get this move right here where closed above 490. That qualifies as well as a new short setup. And that's currently where things are at right now. And you can see it's kind of murky in between. We're just about to get the cyan and the orange right there is going to close below the green as well as the red, though we're in the higher zone, but at least that point you would have to put a stop a couple points above and recognize that this could start a bull run. One other caveat that I would point out is you don't typically take these trades if the shakeout, if you have your magenta or red above the 15. Now in this particular case, we don't have that line on, so we would just go to the format shakeout and we could put the warning line on. So we would go from 0 to 1, and that would put the 15 line on there so that you would be able to see it, which I think is helpful. So in this particular case, there's 15 line, you can see magenta and the red on the shakeout, not above. So no issues with taking that trade as it was. And there you have it. That's one of the most complete and effective. I mean, you can see it took place right here on the 5K chart. That was at 2180 and proceeded all the way until you ended up with this slight move right there where it would have closed out and you would have put a stop right above. But you can see that that was the peak, and then it gave a secondary signal, not on the first one, but on, well, you only give it a couple. Actually, we ended up with the red line right there from the shakeout standpoint. Now, in this particular case, you can see that you would say to me, oh, but we were above the 15. Exactly. Difference is the orange gets over 19. And I don't know if I can bring it, let me see, I can slide this up. And all this is getting factored into the algorithm program right there, the X812 at 19.7, so it's above 19. That's all going to be put into the program, so it will automatically just change it. You won't even have to think about it in this particular case. It will just do its thing. And in this particular case, when there are DOC spreads that don't qualify, they go into what's called a no trade status until a short signal and or long signal is triggered. So it will give kind of a neutralized point. But in this particular case, you can see clearly, actually I think I've marked it on the next chart. Let's take a look at it. Yeah, here we go. So in this particular case, you can see it right here. 5K moves all the way above there, short takes place. Then as we start to move down, you end up with warning spots. You had a little bit right here. You would put your little stop in for a couple points. It doesn't do anything, doesn't get close enough to trigger it, but then you get a secondary one. Now, it wasn't a full move above the 13.5, but still it was enough to put the warning stop in at this particular point. And what you'll find is the shakeouts typically turn from the magenta color back into white, and that's a good indication. So in this particular case, you would see it from that standpoint was 2180 down to 2173.5, because where the signal comes in is 71.5. If you had 2.5 point stop to that, you'd be at 74. So there you go, right there. And then you can see we just ended up with this DOC spread right here, and we moved above the 6.5 right there. Now the orange wasn't at 19, but doesn't matter because we ended up high enough on the reading there, and we're nowhere near getting above plus 15 on the shakeout. So likewise, so the same as the case chart, still within that configuration. And it didn't quite trigger the end of it. And you can get quite a bit of chop going through this. I mean, look at how long this signal basically takes an effect, and you can pretty much ignore, and that's what it'll do. It'll ignore a lot of the noise in between, and so you'll get much longer treks out of the movement. So all good stuff. You will be getting this, won't be called the SOS, it'll be just the regular shakeout, but it will have these configurations, and it'll also have the red line that comes through. And I will be sending out the DOC Test 3, which will have probably the adjustments on that. As you can see, working with changing the colors, moving into the neutral tones. It's just a matter of creating the right loops that justify all of the alterations, and then I definitely wanted to start showing the entry point, and then it'll do the calculation at the end of it, and you'll be able to see the line follow through, step down, as well as long and short algo. I'm hoping to include, see if I can get it into the indicator as opposed to having to be a separate application. It's a little bit tougher because it's sort of like having to make trend lines that appear, disappear, and adjust. So it's a little more complicated language-wise, but nonetheless, we get the point of it. So as always, though, continue to look for me on the Skype chat. I'll be posting charts as developments warrant, but we're getting there. It's looking really good. Very excited about it. As always, though, trade well. We'll talk again later.